Good evening. I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Cumru Township Planning Commission to order. Need my gavel. Please open with the pledge to the flag. All righty, we're going to start with the public comments. Mr. Robert Reber, do you wish to speak? Okay, please come up to the microphone here. And if you could again state your name and your address.
I'm Robert Reber, 103 Elkins Avenue, Shellington, PA. I'm Bruce's next door neighbor. Been living there since 1957, owned the home myself, bought it from my mother in 1980. So I have seen a lot going on Elkins Avenue. Years ago, there was one child hid there at Elkins and High. After talking with Bruce, I have one concern, and so does another neighbor of mine, is somebody was saying about putting stop signs up on Elkins. Would it be the same as they are on Governor Drive, one side completely no parking at all? If it is, the people who work, leave in the morning at 7, come home 4:30 in the afternoon, park their car over the evening, where do they park? The other side of the street is loaded with cars. It's like a used car lot across the street, but everybody has 4 or 5 cars. That's my only question is, would it be permanent parking or temporary hours? That's my question.
Mr. Reber, this issue, again, Bruce has spoken before the Board of Commissioners several times. I know he's been working on this. It's something that the commissioners have been discussing at their meeting. It's really not something that the Planning Commission has any control over. It's really the commissioners, and I certainly understand your concern. It's not an easy fix over there, but I think they're looking at some various solutions, and maybe Bruce, you can.
I got 21 school buses going down that street every morning.
So
in the afternoon, and they do not do 25. Plus the mothers in the morning dropping their children off. Sometimes you can't get out of your own driveway.
So at the last Board of Commissioners meeting, they did approve the advertisement of an amendment to the traffic ordinance, which would restrict parking on one side of that street. So that will be on the Board of Commissioners agenda for the April 21st meeting for them to discuss and potentially vote on. So I would encourage you to come to that meeting, and during public comment on that ordinance, you can express your concerns and let the commissioners know what you think.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you. Take care. Have a good meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Reber. All righty, we're going to move on. We're going to approve the minutes for the March 2nd, 2026 meeting. I'm assuming everybody's taken a look at that. Do we have a motion to approve those minutes?
I move to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, very good. Everybody that attended the meeting, I'm not sure who wasn't there. Everybody who attended the meeting, if you wish to agree with the motion, please respond saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, very good. Those minutes are approved. Okay, we have no plans tonight. So we're going to move on to the other business, which is we'll start with these are proposed changes to or proposed amendments to the zoning ordinance and the zoning map. The first one is the data centers. The final draft was revised on March 6th of this year. There is a public hearing scheduled for April 21st, 2026, before the commissioners' regular meeting. I believe, Patty, that's been advertised or will be advertised, correct?
Yep, I'm taking care of advertising it and Patty is gonna do the posting and the mailing. So that should all be squared away for that meeting to have the hearing.
Okay. I do want to reiterate for those people who are watching the YouTube video. Again, this does not mean that data centers are coming to Cumru Township. It's just, as Commissioner Miller has expressed a couple of times, we are being prepared in case there is someone that wants to come in and do a data center. You can't keep them out. I keep seeing things on, YouTube. There was a shooting in Indianapolis, as a matter of fact, of a council person because he was a proponent of data centers and an opponent allegedly shot into his house. We can't not have data centers. You cannot exclude a use. You have to permit uses. And what we're doing with the data center is that we are trying to regulate where that use goes, give some control to the Board of Commissioners through the conditional use process so that we can determine if a particular applicant meets all the requirements. If they don't meet the requirements and they don't get to build, it's up to them, but we can't keep them out, but we can regulate them. And that's the purpose of this ordinance. I'll get off my soapbox on that, but. Are any questions from any new members? Okay. The next one is the next proposed amendment and zoning map change is the traditional neighborhood development TND overlay district, and the data center is also an overlay. We have a revised ordinance dated February 27th with comments.
I'm sorry, that is a typo on my part. It was actually 327. And yeah.
Okay, thank you, Patty. 327. There was some updated overlay maps that were issued. We have some comments from Bev dated April 2nd. And then we should have some information from Department of Community and Economic Development in the state with information about what a TND land use might look like. Does anyone has anyone reviewed it or have any comments about the most recent revision of the TND ordinance?
I know that Laura did at the BOC, and I did not write them down. I had suggested that we compile them all from today instead of sending them piecemeal to Delta, that we would kind of try to circle the wagons here and send them all at one time so they don't have to keep redoing. So we'll need to, I know she had said, there was some obvious ones like missing some numbers and stuff, but so having said that.
Richard, you had comment?
I had some concerns. There's, aside from the zoning and land development requirements for something like this also relates to the building codes as well. When you have a building that has, let's say, a commercial use on the first floor and residential uses on the second floor, there's certain fire requirements that have to be met. And one of the real concerns is sprinkler protection. And there's a number of different areas where we have concerns about the adequacy of municipal water for sprinkler systems. I think I'm not against this at all. I think it's actually a very nice idea. But from a practical standpoint, I think it's going to be very difficult to implement.
I think you make a valid point, particularly about the water, the lack of water for sprinkler systems or even in general. There's going to have to be significant infrastructure improvements if any of these are going to be going in. Okay, Laura, you had some questions or some comments?
On that one in particular, I know, I think it was the land development. I apologize. I'm still getting my sea legs with this, but it's on the normal, I think it's maybe the building codes, but section 704D4. Now this was referring to, it's not in these, it's one of our separate other ordinances. Hold on a second. It is the residential land use and development requirements from the Cumru Township zoning ordinance of 2009. Article 7.
Is there a specific section and subsection number that you're looking at, Laura?
Yes, so section 704 D as in dog. Line, the number 4 states, the maximum height of a townhouse unit shall be 35 feet. The maximum height may increase to 45 feet or 3 floors, provided that the sprinkler system shall be installed, provided the adequate water pressure and supply is available for fire suppression and protection. I thought a similar wording to these of if it's anything that exceeds, that's 3 stories or more, that something along those lines, that noting there needs to be fire protection with adequate water pressure.
I think that's a good suggestion. I'm just paging through the proposed ordinance to see where that might be a good place to make some revisions.
Well, just as a matter of information, I've actually done a number of these types of developments over the course of the years. And fire protection is a very, it's a concern. There are different types of sprinkler systems for commercial and residential type applications. And as much as I'd like to see something like this happen, there's just too many places where we simply don't have the water to be able to do this type of development.
So Laura, I'm looking at the table of permitted uses on page 4 of the revised TND ordinance. And if you see that townhouse, for example, is a permitted use. So they would actually need to refer to, I believe, the design standards for townhouse, which would refer back to 704. I'd love to have. What is it?
Actually, if you look on page 7, yeah, maximum building height is 50 feet for apartments and townhomes and condos, if I'm reading it correctly.
Well, and in that you have underneath it the A and B, and maybe that might be a place to put C if it exceeds a certain footage or 3 floors, whether it be retail on top and office on top, or residential, or just even residential that's 3 stories. After table W at the bottom, there's A, B.
That's a good suggestion. That would be a good place to put it.
Patty, just for your notes to send to Delta, that would be the table that has TND dimension standards. And Laura was referring to the maximum building height. I think her suggestion, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't want to put words in your mouth, was to include something under that table, like A, B, maybe the letter C, that talks about when sprinkler systems, to what height sprinkler systems would be necessary, and provided obviously that adequate water pressure and supply is available. And she was suggesting mirroring the language that's contained in existing section 704 D4 of the current zoning ordinance. Did you get all that? Not necessarily reference 704 D4, but reference just the language or include some language talking about the need for sprinkler systems and adequate water pressure and supply.
No need to reinvent the wheel.
Do you have any other comments, Laura?
That was on, well, the number thing was on Bev's comments as well. She had picked up on that one. It was just with the trash that I had first noticed going through. I am a resident of Flying Hills, so we're dealing with this where they're not set up to handle the new hydraulic arm. And
So I think you had mentioned specifically under, it's on the draft I have, because there's not sections. It's after dimension standards and it's under F other. It would be F4. And Laura was suggesting that in order to avoid the issues that we are having currently with Flying Hills and the collection system, that Delta look into language that would deal with what trash haulers these days will do and won't do. They like to do the automatic trash and not, have different types of trash setups everywhere.
just something so it can be accessed through the, I mean, if it's the lane in the back, it's very easy to put the toter out back type thing, but just so that it's our board's not having to deal with this every couple years with the refuse bidding and such.
I know in the past that the reason we do not maintain alleys. And so sometimes that comes into a problem if you're having collection in the back. The haulers will only go on designated roads. And so then they will not go on alleys because they're not a designated road. So something else to probably keep in mind when you're saying, oh yes, we're going to use the back, technically alley, and then our ordinances don't, they're not designated, you know what I mean? They're not dedicated roads. So then that might pose a problem because they won't travel on those roads.
So that kind of begs the question, if the intent, for example, looking at this section and there's references to main streets and there's lanes and so forth, is the intent to dedicate the streets within a specific TND, or are they going to be private and supported by an HOA or some other similar organization?
I think it depends on the land development plan that's submitted.
Yeah, Barb, it doesn't specify it, but I mean, if it was anything out of the ordinary, I'd err on the side of not taking dedication of it,
Okay. Bev, do you want to go over your comments, or can we take a look at your comments?
A couple of some of the big issues other than typos is the newest map has the Ukrainian diocese property listed, which just came up for sale. According to the ordinance, the conservation takes precedence over the TND. So my assumption would be if a developer wants to come in there, they would have to go to zoning, that the TND ordinance would not apply because it says the conservation trumps the TND.
Bev, I think that clarification was that came up from a question that I had for the for Delta. In the case of conflicting requirements, or at least those that appear to be, I just used conservation overlay districts as an example of where there might be some conflict if a plan's submitted and, they want to build on a steep slope. I didn't know if the intent was for the TND ordinance to supersede other regulations in the current zoning ordinance, whether they were conservation overlay district requirements or otherwise. So I think it was clarified that, at least specifically related to the conservation overlay district requirements, those would still apply. So I think we might be conflating the term rural conservation as a term for a certain zoning district with the conservation overlay district requirements that pertain specifically to floodplains, wetlands, steep slopes. All those things would still apply. But just because it's called rural conservation, that's just the name of the zoning district. But again, though, they would still be subject to any of those other overlay district requirements that might apply, particularly in that case, probably steep slopes. So just trying to clarify that a little bit. For those not as familiar with the zoning ordinance, if you go through it, I think it's I don't know if it's I think it's Article 5. If you open up the zoning ordinance, you'll see there's specific overlay districts for environmentally sensitive areas, whether it's steep slopes, wetlands, floodplains, and sometimes you can have multiple overlapping each other. So you'll see what I'm getting at if you open up to that article.
So Steve, do you think it would be smart to actually cite that article to say that the requirements of the districts in Article 5 would remain in place when they're in conflict with the TND overlay?
Yeah, I guess it couldn't hurt. They kind of when I say that, I'm talking Delta. I recall them kind of responding that those environmental requirements would still apply. They wouldn't be superseded. But one of the concerns I had with the ordinance was just kind of conflicts with the current zoning ordinance, and that was just one of them. So they did clarify that to me. Whether or not it ended up in the language, I thought they did address it, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, my other two main issues are with the way the map is done now, with a lot of these properties being between Cumru and Robinson. We had issues in the past. I can think of 2 instances where that came into an issue where they had to get approval from Robinson before, and Cumru as well. I think we need to definitely put something in here that it needs to be approved by any bordering municipality, basically Robinson, to approve it before Cumru approves it, because if it ends up being in 2 different parts, it could definitely cause a conflict, and Robinson will say, we didn't approve it, the land is still this way.
If you're referring to the point where a developer has submitted an application for land development, if their land, correct me if I'm wrong, Kelsey, but if the land is in more than one municipality under the saldo, they need to review that in that neighboring municipality.
That's correct. Yeah, it would be reviewed by both.
And if we have a conditional use hearing, now maybe this is more to Bev's point. Is it something that we should notify, for example, Robinson Township, which seems to be the most affected?
I think Yes, I think every municipality should do that when they have something that's split. I think it makes the most sense. It keeps everybody on the same page and then there's not litigation and issues with the developer later.
Is that something that can be included in this ordinance and anywhere, or should be a procedural issue?
I don't know that it necessarily needs to be included in the ordinance. I think that it's something that, our planning secretary could,
Yeah, I think what the point Bev brings up, I think it was a little bit confusing because of the way the mapping was shown. You know, the parcels that were colored, I imagine you didn't have we didn't have the option of kind of cutting it off at the municipal boundary, but I think that might have been where some of the confusion is. So just to be clear, none of those parcels in Robinson are, the zoning's not changing to have this overlay district, adopted in Robinson. I don't think Robinson's doing anything with those parcels. It's just a mapping.
And going back, Steve, to your conservation district, it's in section 6063A1, where it says the requirements of the conservation districts remain in place when in conflict with the TND. So you're correct, it was in there.
Thanks.
My other big issue is if we build these, if they're approved and the homes are built, the school district has said multiple times at steering committee meetings and presentations that they don't have any room to build. I looked, Brecknock Elementary is on less than 5 acres of land. I think we should definitely have something in there that, I don't know if we can put something in there saying, hey, there needs to be a set aside for future school build, because otherwise, even though our local taxes might go down or stay the same, our school taxes could be going up because they would have to purchase property to build. If we have something in there that says, hey, there needs to be a set aside, it would probably help all the residents tax-wise. I don't know if that's something we can put in there or not.
Yeah, I don't think we can tell a developer that they have to set aside a certain area of their land or subdivide it to create land for another entity or developer or the school. You can't do that.
I do think some of the areas located in the transportation service area. So I do think that at least, so I'd have to look at the map, but I think some of the areas, if they were developed, would be subject to traffic impact fees. That wouldn't address what what Bev's bringing up, but there might be some off-site improvements or something we can do with developer money, but yeah, as far as the school goes, yeah, I don't think we can address that.
It was worth a shot.
That's why we have these meetings to discuss.
Well, I'll throw my 2 cents in as an architect. I've done several projects like this, and in fact, several are local. Ideally, it would be good if you had a large tract of land where you could do something like is on this handout, with a large scale townhouse, apartment type of mixed development. But on the other hand, I can see it being something a little bit different, almost something like the situation over in West Reading along Penn Avenue, where you have maybe a house that was taken for a commercial use on the first floor, and there are apartments on the second floor. It could be a good infill project as well. So I think there's some bluff there, I guess, room to be a little innovative about this.
I think with that as well, over in technically in Wyomissing, but where Viva used to be on the downstairs, that area, even since Viva's left, there's a ton of shops. I mean, I know I'm over there a lot just for the UPS store there, but with the housing upstairs, in the middle, there's on the outside of the ground floor, there's retail, and on the inside, I believe it's parking garage.
I was in Myrtle Beach last week, and they have an area there called Market Commons, which is really like a really large TND. They have retail, restaurant, apartments, multi-level apartments above. They have townhouse areas. They have single-family homes that are separated by sidewalks, very similar to what this is. Very beautiful area. I think they did a lot of thinking and planning. The one thing I did notice there, though, which concerns me, is that a lot of the retail spaces were vacant. So that's a concern I have. I mean, admittedly have a little trouble with Flying Hills, keeping people in the, in the restaurant spaces and things like that. I don't know. That's just an observation. I think the right developer, the right retail coming in, I think would be important. It's not something we can put into an ordinance, but it's just an observation to make this successful.
I think a lot of my other questions on here, we should probably have Delta clarify a little bit better. When is the next meeting with Delta?
I had received an email today saying that they wanted all of these comments from all the entities by the end of day on 14th, so that they could roll it into something that they could possibly vote to advertise then on the 21st. So I think they're looking for all comments before then. I do have a question on your comments. On the first side, 10.7, all lots less than what? Where is that? And what number? Is this the same number that Laura was talking about? So maybe we should say example number such and such.
Where it's at, I forgot to put the C in there. On page 10, C dash. Is the definition for lanes, all lots less than shall be provided with a rear access via a lane. It doesn't say.
It's under mixed center.
Mixed center, yeah.
Mixed center, it would be C7. And that's under TND sub areas.
On page 13.
I think it's 10 in the non-ed version.
Are we proposing some kind of number, or you just want them to look at it and come up with a number? Does anyone have, yeah?
There needs to be a number there.
Well, if we're looking at this from the perspective of I'll use the analogy with Penn Avenue and West Reading. I mean, a lot of those houses were built on a quarter of an acre. They have both commercial and residential uses. I could see that as an infill in some areas in Cumru. I don't know if that would be applicable for what we're really looking for.
Bev, with regard to that, what you pointed out there, if you look on B7, it does say all lots less than 40 feet in width shall be provided. So I'm assuming that's what the intent was.
Okay, probably 40 feet. Okay.
Did you get that, Patty? Okay. Steve, do you have comments that you wish to share?
So I went through the ordinance a number of times. I didn't go through it line by line. Just a little background here. I really didn't have any involvement on the in the early stages of this, and really during the development of it. I know Delta and I think the commissioners had workshops or whatever. I don't know if were there planning commission members involved on some of that stuff. Yeah. So I got the impression that kind of Delta was brought on to kind of take the lead here with them having expertise in these TNDs before. So really my role, I kind of assumed when I was asked to review it kind of at the end of the process was more kind of, an admin kind of type review. And I offered comments a number of different times. I had a Zoom meeting with two of the folks from Delta, very nice. Some of my comments, were addressed with revisions. Other comments I think were respectfully considered, but, determined that they really didn't, warrant revisions, which is fine. So at this point, I don't have any additional comments. That's not to say that I don't have concerns with it. I still do, but again, I'm not the expert on the TND stuff. I do recognize that mixed use zoning can be terribly complex. And inevitably we're going to have issues if a plan's submitted for a TND, we're going to discover issues, but that's not a knock on Delta or anybody else that prepares an ordinance. It's just a nature of the beast, I think. So there's going to be stuff to work out, but at this time, I don't have anything else. Like I said, I still have concerns, but I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
Steve, looking ahead, when we get a plan in, how do you see difficulties coordinating the zoning ordinance with the saldo?
Potentially, I one of my comments, I thought in my opinion, I thought it would have been cleaner to have the saldo revised, to address specifically, TNDs. They did add some design, criteria, for example, road widths, right away, that sort of thing. Typically, that type of information is in a subdivision and land development ordinance, as opposed to a zoning ordinance. They've supposed to include it in the zoning ordinance, which is better than nothing. But I think there are going to be some issues, Barb. I don't know specifically what they're going to be yet. I think you're going to have some conflicts dimensionally that, are probably going to come up and may require variances or, interpretations by the zoning officer or something like that. But, I think that's one of those things that's probably going to be inevitable. I don't think it's something that we won't be able to work around one way or another, but I think we're going to have some issues like that. Yes.
I agree with you, Steve, about that. Bruce and Joe, do you have any comments?
Just coming in, to this, it's just understanding the process by which, we're going down through here is what I'm really trying to glean from this process, and then get into the details, listen to all of the, the comments, kind of gather those together. So it's more of a processing of the process than it is really focusing on, the requirements of the TND right now.
One of the things, because I've been out, and one of the things I wanted to do as the new people came in was basically to give an overview of what does the planning commission do? What is the process? I mean, real Reader's Digest version. If there's an amendment to a zoning ordinance, it can either come from the commissioners, the governing body can create it and is given to the planning commission for review, or it can come from the planning commission, which we've done last year. We did a few of those where we created, basically Stephen Kelsey really created the ordinance, and then we gave it to the commissioners. So it's possible to do it either way. This is, in my experiences, is a more unusual way to do it. It usually comes from the planning agency, but it doesn't have to.
No, I'm all for what's going on here as far as developing this area and maybe bringing us into the 2026, so to speak. The only question I had, and I did talk to Commissioner Miller about it, was in the zoning it mentions industry. And I didn't know that he said it has to stay there. So, because I said it kind of, to me, your vision of that area and that development, I don't see that industry is part of that area. But I don't know, maybe Kelsey knows it. He's kind of claimed that you couldn't take that out of there.
Yeah, I don't know what section specifically, I know it says, it refers to, I'm trying to look at the first line there. GI is mentioned in the first paragraph on the first page, but that's just referencing one of the zoning ordinances that the overlay will pertain to. I don't know if the word industry comes up somewhere else in the ordinance, but I think the important thing is, it's Bruce, right? I'm sorry, Bruce, who said that? Joe? Joe. I think the important thing is, I don't think there's any industrial type uses listed as permitted by right or condition. So to your point, yeah, it would be inappropriate to have industrial type uses in a development like this, and they're not permitted. We might have to comb through it to see if there's a reference to industry somewhere else in here that's not consistent with that, but we'll have to look at that.
I said, it concerned me because I thought if that's something that's like a typo, it needed to be removed.
I think it's what Steve said. It's just referring to the underlying districts that the TND overlay district will overlay. One of which is the general industrial, but I didn't see anything in it allowing for any industrial uses if you're going to try to get a conditional use under this ordinance.
Eric, I didn't mean to exclude you. You're hiding down there. You're being really quiet.
Is that better? Being that this is my second meeting and being familiar, at least with Area 4, Area 3 is a little sketchy, but this does include the land that they originally proposed for the warehouse, correct? And knowing that part of land, most of that right now is woods, farmland, correct? So I guess what we're trying to do is to put rules in for if someone comes in and buys that wants to put homes on. It doesn't look like, to me, knowing that land, that there would be something like mixed use that would really be profitable for someone to put in, because it's kind of, depending on where you are, it's not near a main road for access unless it's right along Route 10. So to me, it's more about housing development or making the rules up. So at least that's what I'm thinking. And is that kind of the goal of what we're looking at? If that,
I'm not sure. I can't speak, and I'm not sure if Kelsey can speak for the commissioners either.
I wouldn't speak on behalf of the commissioners. All I can tell you is that I know that Delta created this ordinance as a result of investigating, the areas in Cumru that could be developed in a responsible way that would fit within the township well. And that through all these steering committees and those analyses and investigations, they determined that this TND overlay district was something that they think would be feasible.
So we're looking at, you said the question or the changes go in on the 14th and advertise it for the following week.
So are you talking the timeline you're talking
Yes.
about? Yeah. So the timeline, I think, and Patty, correct me if I'm wrong, but there was an email that went out today saying that Delta would like all of the comments from the planning commission, the fire chief, and from the other entities involved, including the Berks County Planning Commission, by the 14th of April so that they can put a final revised version together by the 17th of April, which will then get circulated again to us and to the Berks County Planning Commission. By us, I mean this planning commission, because they need a 30-day review period again if they're going to try to enact it in May. And our meeting in May has been pushed back to May 28th. So technically, that would give them that 30-day window that's required. So I think timeline-wise, that's what they're looking at.
That's kind of more where I was thinking is what's the end game, you know?
I was gonna say, most of the area along Route 10 is virtually undevelopable. There is a small section that we were looking at for the warehouse use, which would be appropriate for something like this. That would be fine. But from a practical standpoint, I'm gonna say most of that area really can't be developed. It's just too steep. It's inaccessible. I don't know how you'd even get a road into that particular area.
I agree with you, Richard. The Sherwin properties, they're ag uses. I'm not sure why we want to take that out of ag use if the owner was even willing to do that. It's also in a historic district in the comprehensive plan. So I've had questions about that from the start, but I agree with you on a lot of that land. Before I forget, Patty, the list of owners at the bottom, it has an asterisk that says partially in Spring Township. I don't think any of this is in Spring Township.
Yeah, one of the other areas is maybe it's a typo carrying forward. I don't think I have that in front of me.
Yeah, I'm thinking that was like area one,
Yes,
around the
there's-
Doggersville area was where some of that was probably spring with the other.
Yeah,
areas
because
we're
there's
looking at.
eventually there will be an area 1 and 2. And I think that's just a carryover that they had it as the footer for all of that. But these two, you're right, are not in Spring Township. Thank you.
Do we have anything else you want to talk about with this TND? Go ahead, Laura.
I have a few more comments, but I wanted to let other people talk first. On the second, I guess it's the third page, under general provisions, A4(2), it says, municipal site improvements within the townhouse unit development. I think that's actually supposed to say traditional neighborhood development. I think that was wrong. On the red line, it's page 3, number 4, 2. It's the second line where it says, towards the end of the second line, says within the townhouse unit development. I think that should say traditional neighborhood development.
You got that, Patty? I agree. I think that's correct.
One of the things, and maybe this is me being nitpicky, I often found that they intertwine or interuse the words townhouse and then single family attached dwellings. I didn't know if just single family attached dwellings could be added to the definitions section to clarify if townhouses do fall under that. That was more of an overall. And then the other overall, I noticed there wasn't like in the Mifflin, the Greater Mifflin Comprehensive Plan, there's often talking about if it's a 55 and up, whether it be an apartment building that's 55 and up or something like that, where we allow increased density or those things. There's nothing in this that really encourages the addition of a 55 and up and how that would benefit the school district. So that was more of a broad general comment of, are there places where, I know there's one section where they talk about you can increase the number of dwelling units per acre if you use 40% as open space instead of 30%. Could there be something where you can increase it density if it's a 55 and up or something along those lines?
That's a great comment.
So, yeah, I think that's interesting. The way that it's written now, there's nothing that would preclude a developer from making it age restricted, but if you incentivize it, that's something to consider.
Any more?
No, that's all I got in a week.
Very, very good comments. Okay. Are we kind of done with going over this so that Patty can provide something to the commissioners?
I will try tomorrow to put this all together and get it out to all of you. And then if you think I missed something or you want it to look differently before I give it over to them, we have a little bit of time. So
Are you gonna send Barb's and Bev's over too?
Barb's were already included supposedly.
I think you should send, you know what I mean? Just
Okay.
everything in one batch so they have everything in front of them. These are all
Just,
comments
okay,
from
because
them.
they said they did, but I didn't
Just to make sure that we
cross-reference
have
everything.
everything and
So yes, so I'll have all of Barb's here, Bev's, and then I'll include what we talked about tonight and make sure that, that I didn't miss anything or that you had a chance to look at it again and say, hey, we can go back and forth because I want it to be your comments and all in one place.
I take that back. I had one more question, and this might just be more for Steve. Is it normal that the residential one-way parking on both sides of the street is the same width as residential one-way parking only on one side?
Repeat that again, just make sure that I heard it correctly.
So on the width for a one-way street, it's the same width listed if you only allow parking on one side versus two sides.
Where's that? Where's the section?
It's the very last table of the very last page.
The short answer would be no, that's not, but sometimes you'll have the road considered the cartway, and then, an ordinance might say the cartway, the driving lanes have to, or lane in this case, would have to be a certain width, but then you have additional width for parking lanes. I don't know if that's the case. Very last page.
Yes.
We'll see.
Yeah, I would say 34. Generally, a parking lane is about 8 feet wide. A standard travel lane width is 12 feet. So if you didn't have any parking, typically your road would be 24 feet. I don't know if the intent here is to have 10-foot lanes and, so what would that be? 10 foot, 20, 14, and 7-foot parking lanes maybe? But to your point, they shouldn't be the same. I mean, if we're only going to 10-foot lanes and a 7-foot parking lane, your two sides should be wider. So that's an error.
All righty. I guess we can move on from all of that. Reminder, tentative zoning hearing board hearing on the 28th of April, Patty?
Yes, I could not get an exact answer out of anyone. They were running into a quorum issue, so I think they could have a quorum if they made it 7:30 versus 6 o'clock. But then they were concerned that it would get very late because they could potentially have one continuance and 3 new applications. But since they were brand new applications, then there was talk about maybe making them May. So I put everybody on here just because they'll be discussed at some time. But I don't know when.
Okay. Looking at the applications, there's continuance for application 837, PCS mental health. I think we did discuss this one already. That they wanted to add 2 residents. Application 841, Kopecky for 717 Philadelphia Avenue. They want to allow an 8-foot fence in the front yard. For new members, we have these applications from the zoning board coming to us. We can support them. We could say we don't support them. We could say we have no opinion either way. So anyway, so looking at 717 Philadelphia Avenue, does anybody have any comments on that?
The drawing was confusing to me. You have the front of the house, then the backyard, then the back of the house, in between the front, the fenced in areas between the front and the back of the house. So that was kind of confusing to me. Is this
I had 5 copies. Do you guys have a copy to look at? Okay, good. I want to make sure everybody's looking at it. Thank you.
I actually just had a question on the 837. So that was initiated by PCS Mental Health for the additional residents there. How long is it gonna, how long is the continuance going till they come here and basically say they want a decision? Or obviously this is a decision of the zoning board looking for our opinion.
What happened was, while they presented, then there was discussion about if they had enough of the parking spaces, but then they went back and forth because their residents there don't have ability to have the car. So that went back and forth. Well, in the meantime, a whole lot of special circumstances have been going on lately. Their lawyer must have left that firm. And then there was another lawyer who was picking up the cases. So that went back and forth for a little bit. So they waived their right to have a decision within 60 days. So because they did that, it's kind of up to, yes, when they get their ducks in a row and they want to come back and present again to the zoning hearing board. So it's kind of open-ended because they gave the permission that it didn't have to be done within the 60 days.
So the presentation goes to the zoning hearing board, not here. So if we have questions regarding this, how do we communicate to the zoning hearing board so they can ask the people when they come in about the continuance?
We would make up a memo and we would send it to the Board of Commissioners voicing your concerns. And then if the Board of Commissioners also felt the same way, they could authorize someone to go and testify at the zoning hearing board. unless you have standing and you personally live next door or, have some reason to be there, we can't just send people to just willy-nilly talk at the zoning hearing board. So that's the process we're trying to do here. If you feel a certain way, we can pass that on to the Board of Commissioners, and then they could always approve, authorize someone to talk on our behalf against or, or for or whatever. Right, or go and ask questions on our behalf, but they have to be, authorized to go and speak on behalf of someone else. And Kelsey can correct me because she's the lawyer person.
Yeah, no, that's correct, Patty. Yeah, if the planning commission wants to submit some sort of memo to the Board of Commissioners saying, we don't necessarily oppose this or support it, but we do have questions about it, and maybe you want to send someone to the hearing to ask these questions, you could certainly issue that memo to the Board of Commissioners, and then they could decide what they want to do with it, if anything.
Understood?
Okay, so again, because we had discussed this one in the past, I don't think we took a position in either direction for sending somebody
You
there.
did not. And if I may, on 841, especially for people not familiar, this had been where the fire had been, and it had been the big balloon construction, and ultimately all 4 of those houses were demolished, and this one rebuilt. And what makes it unique is that, because some of the zoning hearing board people had asked questions, is because of where it is, all those houses that burned, their entrance was really off the alley. Like, they're kind of backwards to what like you would think of a normal housing. They did not come in and out off of Philadelphia Avenue. They came in and out off of the alley in the back. So when this person, not one of the original owners, as Kelsey can tell you, there was not any of the original owners at the end. A lot of people changed hands who did not have the history. One of the people who had bought it, built this man bought it. He put up a big fence because in his mind, his front door is at the alley and his back door is on Philadelphia Avenue. He must have dogs, so he put up a bigger fence there. But then when it came to somebody complained, technically speaking, that is his front yard because it faces Philadelphia Avenue. But the way he uses the house and the way it's built, it's backwards. So that's why he's trying to come and say, hey, he would like relief because the fence is there. So if you drive by, the fence is there, and that's what the whole business is here, with the fence in the front yard and the backyard.
Yeah, the zoning ordinance says that a fence should not exceed a maximum height of 3 feet within the front yard and 8 feet within the side or rear yard. And so he's saying, I want 8 feet all around it because otherwise my dogs are going to jump the 3-footer.
Anybody have any thoughts or any strong feelings about that one?
I'm assuming the owners of the other 3 lots, they received notice that this was going, so they were at least advised.
Yeah, they were advised, or they would have been under the zoning ordinance and the MPC to be able to have notice to show up. And so if they wanted to show up and voice their opinion or complain or become a party, they certainly could do that.
I just have one comment on that property. I went past that property. I don't understand what he's trying to gain by fencing the front of that. I mean, it's the front of that is like from this wall to the end of this desk. I mean, if he has dogs and they're climbers, he's got an 8-foot fence in the back with a decent area. But no, you're shaking your head no?
They already built the fence. The fence that
Yeah,
you
the
see
fence
there
in the
now.
back. I'm talking
No,
about
that's the fence in the front yard. What you see now, it's technically the front yard that he fenced in. He thought he was fencing in the backyard.
Right, so are we, but he wants to fence the front entranceway? That's what I'm reading.
No, he wants to keep the fence that he already put up a bit, but now it's flip-flopped and so he has to get relief because he misunderstood when he
Okay,
bought the
I'm-
property.
I wasn't following.
No, he's not fencing anymore. He just wants to keep what he has.
They'll let that one, punt that one to the zoning hearing board. All right, number 842, Posh Development Group, 219 Pershing Boulevard, seeking multiple relief to, I guess, turn a garage on the property into 2 apartments. And if I understand correctly, it's going to leave the house there. I personally, I have a real problem with this one. I don't think it's appropriate in any way, shape, or form. It's already prohibited to have more than one principal structure on a property. I don't see the need for any kind of variance to turn this into apartments right here, but that's my opinion.
There is a picture too to show the whole area is, yes, very, very developed up. And this particular man, he did just have where he had changed the lot lines so that 2 semis are going to go in like right around the corner at that one spot too. So there's a lot going on there.
Yeah, I mean, I question, is there still garage space along with the 2 apartments? It's not clear. It looks like it. And, where's the parking for? Is there only on-street parking for the principal use? I just don't see the point of putting apartments in a garage on a small lot like that, being accessed off the alley. And is this, Patty, or maybe you remember, is this the same alley that we had a lot of discussion about a couple months ago, where the guy paved the alley on his own? It's not that one.
No, it's further.
So that 2-car garage that he's talking about, that's what he wants to convert into an apartment. Yeah, I drove past it. So he has plenty of off-street parking. But I thought, it looked to me like the property adjacent to that also had an apartment building. Or it has a detached garage. It looked like it had a living unit up top.
If you go around the corner there onto Greg, that's where the 2 semis are going to be. You just see a big tree now. There's 2 semis going to go in there. And that was also his thing. And then the one that's right between the 2 of them, that is also a situation where it's a house and it's like 2 apartments. So there's a lot going on there.
Just a quick question. Are the apartments going above the garage, or is the garage being converted for apartments?
The way I understood it, he was just converting what is there into apartments. The other one on Gregg Avenue too, in case it has any worth for anyone, they have to extend the sewer, but they're coming down the other way because there wasn't sewer there for the Gregg ones. I'm not exactly sure. I think there's sewer on the Pershing, but I'm not sure where or how the connections would be made. Okay, just.
Any thoughts, comments about this one? Any direction to the commissioners?
Yeah, I think having two in there is definitely too much. I mean, sometimes when people do request a variance, it's like for an in-law quarters. But this one appears to be, it's going to be rented out to unrelated people. So I agree with you, Barb. I think this one's a little wonky.
They didn't ask for relief for more than one principal use. I would assume that would need to be a variance for that as well.
Yeah.
I think that's what the first one here, it's 406C to allow more than one principal use.
So they need a special exception, and then it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 variances.
Yeah, I think that reference to 406C is probably wrong. 406C, I think probably, section 406, I think is the HR district requirements. 406C might be, I don't know, conditional uses or something. There's a specific section in, Article 9 of the zoning ordinance that restricts lots to one principal use. So I think there might be an error in there in terms of the sections that are referenced.
Actually, in section in 202, under the definitions, also it clearly states only one principal use is permitted per lot.
What section 406C is that?
That's
Is that allowing apartments as a conditional use, or?
It does reference in 406C only one principal use being permitted per lot, meeting the minimum maximum dimensional requirements. So maybe that's what.
Oh, okay. All right. Thanks.
So basically they can't meet those minimum and maximum dimensional requirements, hence all the other variances. So if you need that many variances, you really need the use, in my opinion.
I mean, you'd stated, someone had stated about it being two. If they had gone to just one up there, then that, I mean, they're asking for impervious because of the amount of parking they would add. If they had only asked for one apartment instead of two apartments, they need less additional parking, which means they'd need less of the impervious. I don't know if you ever go back and say, like, would you consider one instead of two? I have no clue.
I think they're going to have a very difficult time proving to the zoning hearing board that there's any kind of legitimate hardship here.
So you could just, memo to the board. If what it sounds like is you might want to just memo to the board that you wouldn't recommend them supporting this application.
Yeah,
I'm gonna make a motion.
yeah, I was gonna say, someone like to make a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners in writing that we do not recommend approval of this application number 842.
I'll second that.
Do you want to first it first?
So do you, I'll agree with that, yeah.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Any opposed? Application 843, 2399 Lancaster Pike, seeking a variance for minimum side yard. I cannot participate in this discussion, so Bev, you want to handle the discussion?
Yes, he has come have zoning approval before that zoning ordinance exception had expired. He has come before the planning commissions multiple times with, I'm going to build 1-story, I'm going to build 2-story. He could not decide exactly how he wanted to build it. So at this point, there's a new application for a zoning exemption. I actually haven't reviewed this application in full yet.
But it looks like he's only asking for a variance for a minimum side yard setback and not necessarily for the building itself.
That's what he did last time too. He couldn't make up his mind between 1-story and 2-story. And then that's where everyone kept providing feedback that it would change, would change what he needed if he was doing 2-story. And he never, even in this thing, he didn't show the building this time, and he didn't commit to 1-story or 2-story. So as Bev said, a lot of people wouldn't know the history probably.
Well, and also didn't the variance that he received, that was in,
22.
so that would have expired 4 years ago, and he didn't start construction or
No,
do anything
no.
with permits?
Nope. That's why he had to come back. That's what he was told, he had to come back.
Right, but he's not coming back he's only coming back for side yard setback.
Right.
I mean, I'm not sure. I know last time there was a bunch of debris there. I haven't double checked it to make sure if the debris has been removed. He said some of it was there and the grass was growing over it, but something just kind of with the way that it has come for this board before with the changes. Even though right now he's starting off with the zoning, he'll be, if the zoning approves it, then he'll before the planning, and I don't know what kind of plans he'll come through, whether it'll be which version of the plans he would come with.
I'm not sure if he has to come back for land development though, since it's already a paved lot.
He has the trailers there, and I don't think the trailers are on the paved lot. I think the trailers are just on grass.
Does anybody have any thoughts or opinions on this application? I mean, I don't think it's set for a zoning hearing yet, is it? They didn't schedule it yet?
This is one of the brand new ones that came in, so I don't know if it's being heard in April or May, because this was a brand new one. So that's where the whole debacle came in. We don't know when these are going to be held.
I would say at this point, we don't render an opinion on this one until after the zoning hearing board.
Well, if you don't render an opinion on it before the zoning hearing board, they're not going to hear your opinion. So it's either do nothing, don't recommend anything, recommend supporting it, recommend opposing it.
I think I recommend doing nothing.
Steve, I have a question. Already, the two existing buildings are already non-conforming with respect to the side yards. How does that influence what we're looking at?
I don't know, Rich. I don't think I've seen has the plan changed at all in terms of the layout?
No, those would be pre-existing non-conforming structures, so.
There's the setback line. This is completely outside the setback line. And that's what's proposed. And that, we debate about.
Yeah, well, I think, Rich, I think it's something that the the zoning hearing board would have to consider, you know, if they already have, you know, encroachments. You know, that's something that they would consider. I assume that, you know, it would be additional encroachment. You know, but again, I think that's more of a zoning hearing board call. And I mean, in my position, I really don't have an opinion one way or the other. I think it's up to the zoning hearing board on that.
I would agree with Steve.
Okay, so that's a no comment, more or less, no position either way, Chris, okay.
To vote on that.
All righty, Board of Commissioners meeting, the public hearing for the data center, April 21st, regular meeting to follow. Our next planning commission meeting is May 4th. Is there anything else?
I just have one quick comment. When we were talking about the parking and the one-way streets, I think that if you open up the draft, I think the 34-foot dimension should be revised in both cases. I think for one-way street parking on two sides, the width should be 28 feet. One-way parking on one side should be 20 feet. Thanks.
All righty.
Just one more comment. Laura, thanks for joining the commission. You've come out with, came out guns a-blazing. Yeah, a lot of comments. So we look forward to hearing your comments on future meetings.
Thank you, everybody. All new members. It's nice to meet you all finally. So do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye.
All right.
Meeting adjourned.